And good morning, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix. We're here with the Astro Weather. How about that? It's Tuesday. I've got my black coffee, and we're ready to prognosticate the celestial influences on your daily life. Good morning, everyone in chat. Good to see you. Uh, let me go in here, and boy, I tell you, today has been a very interesting day in terms of good old Mercury retrograde. How's Mercury retrograde hitting y'all, as they say down here? Are you feeling it? Are you feeling it? Let's see what we have today. My coffee is black, like my mood. No, not too black. Although there's plenty of darkness out there. If you want to tap into it, on Sunday night we talked about the next round of shootings, and sure enough, we had a shooting at a Dollar General, and we had a shooting at a school. I think it was a university, and right on time. If you want to know what's happening, all you got to do is tap into the astrology, and you'll be able to set your watch by it. Great show last night with my guy Al Dog over on Sirius Sports, and I think it might have been my favorite show so far. We got into a lot of different stuff. We spent a lot of time checking out Pat Tillman's chart, the fallen hero from the Gulf War. What else we get into? The aeons of football, which was, I thought, really an interesting sort of dive. But right now, we're going to get into what's happening weather-wise. So let's do that. Let's do that, shall we? Here it is. I'm pretty sure we got the right day. 8:29:23, 8 a.m. There it is. Our Grand Trine is still in operation, although separating. How was Mars and Libra entrance? Did you kind of get into it yesterday? Were people a little chippy, or were you going out of your way to forcibly demonstrate how nice you can be with Libra? But it's still in there, right? Mars is still trining Pluto. It's really separating now. It's 8 degrees away from Uranus. So by Thursday we'll be up. We'll be out of the Grand Trine. Oh, I'm gonna miss that Grand Trine. That was a very productive Grand Trine. But eventually we'll see some Grand Trine action again. We're coming into the full moon, the second full moon, the blue moon, which I talked about again on Sunday night's show. And here we've got nothing but blue skies, a little bit cooler, but I'm on the record, Astro weather-wise, that we're going to get a lot of wet with this full moon in Pisces, even though it does have to cross this threshold with Saturn, and sometimes Saturn can wring out the moisture. So it'll be interesting. I do think we're going to have a bit of a deluge, and keep your eye on Florida, which I mentioned. But the Moon Saturn conjunction, I also feel like this Moon Saturn conjunction, even though we're still have the Moon in Aquarius, it's it's kind of like tapping the car battery. Back in the day, remember we had the car battery, you had water, you had to put water in your battery. It's like tapping the car battery without any water. I mean, that's kind of how the full moon feels. But on the other side of Saturn, on the other side of that conjunction, it opens up, and I think it pours. And then what happens after that? Well, we'll see. I'm sure the genetically modified mosquitoes will be proliferating at the time. All right. So what else do we have? We've got our good friend Mercury retrograde now stationed somewhere between Uranus and Jupiter at this midpoint. I think today's a good thing. Today is a good day to find things that you've been missing. That's what I think. Things that have maybe gone under the seats of your couch, or documents that you can't find, spend a little time today searching around for those things. I get a sense that they'll turn up. So that's one good aspect of Mercury retrograde. It's moving out away from the opposition with Neptune. In 2 days, it'll be outside of that opposition, right? No, 3 days actually. So we still have it, although again, it's separating a bit. We have Pallas at 23 Virgo, and I think people are starting to pick up on the cultural patterns as it relates to health and some of the things that they're pretending that we are theoretically having to go through. People are wide awake with this palace in Virgo and looking around at who wants to put them back behind a mask or underneath the pointed jab of a poison needle, right? So people are not unaware at this time. In fact, they're quite aware. So that's good. Good health awareness, pattern recognition with Virgo. Also, for your own, people are into self care, right? So your own self care, I think Palace is. I think it's good. I think it's good to tune into that, and we do our best here in these Virgo parts to take care of ourselves. Uh, let's see what else we have. We have Venus opposing the Moon today in Aquarius, so we got that Aquarian moon. It's a cool moon. It's a detached moon. It's a bit of a freaky deaky voyeuristic moon, right? That's always the moon. I tell you, if you're going to go through any emotional stress, the moon in Aquarius is not a bad day to go through that stress. People may actually accuse you of not being emotional enough with the moon in Aquarius. And it is going to be squaring Jupiter, and it is, as we move through the day, going to be squaring Uranus. So these are unusual emotional patterns. And of course, Aquarius is the waves, right? So you're also picking up on other people's emotions and waves and vibes, as the kids say. So that's another component here with this moon is that it's getting ready to move into that full position. It's gathering some steam. But I do think with the opposition with Venus, Venus retrograde in Leo it's looking for love, right? It's looking for love. Where did our love go? Where's our passion? And the moon in Aquarius is like, well, good luck. Hope you find it. It's got that kind of indifference. And if you are in a relationship where it's a bit polarized and a bit icy, I would say just try to wait it out. Don't try to force the issue with the Venus retrograde opposing the moon. And I'll tell you why. In fact, if you go in the opposite direction and not try to probe and figure out and find out why somebody's feeling a certain way, and you really want to get closer to them, this is one of those days where if you pull away, you kind of go in your own direction, they'll follow you and they'll eventually open up. And so sometimes life is a bit strategic. We can't always be earnest. We do our best, but we can't always be earnest. And today is one of those days where it pays to not be so earnest. Remove your energy. Don't try to get in there and have some kind of warm and fuzzy connection. And the other person will move off their block and they'll come to you. Now you may say to yourself, well, I just lost a little respect for that person. Don't do that. Don't do it. Sometimes you have to be able to get in there and sort of help guide the current along. Let's put it that way. I do think that people are trying to rekindle something, but it's just kind of out of reach. We're about to have Mercury go direct here very soon, and it's not going to come in and conjunct Juno, which is moving closer. It's sort of like, let's kind of rekindle our flame. Let's kind of get back to that place where we had less boundaries and less divisions, and things were more fun and pure and innocent. And you can't blame a person for trying, but I'm not sure it's not gonna get there. And for some people, this will be a disappointment in relationship. I'm not gonna beat around the bush at that. And today might be the realization of some of that for because this is just the way it is with this moon in Aquarius opposite Venus. It's just like, okay, well, do I need to put any more energy into this? And for some people, it could be a bit disappointing. I'm just saying. What else do we have? Mars is still in trine with Pluto, although again in Libra versus Virgo, it's a very, very different output. And I think if you want to be more active and more aggressive in terms of working with one another um, and deriving some benefit out of that, that could be quite good, actually. Watch out for this true node coming in and conjuncting Eris. That Eris is, I guess it's the new Eris is the new variant. Am I right about that? I think I read that Eris is the new variant. They can do a commercial for that. Eris, the new variant. You thought Alpha, Omega, and Delta were troubling. Wait till you meet Eris. Uh, keep your eye on this. We'll track this as we get closer. We're getting real close right now. So by the end of the week, we've got a true node Eris conjunction. Just in time for kids going back to college. Not a lot of water in the air today. We got Saturn, of course, stingy Saturn in Pisces. Watching your water. It's a drought, Don't water your lawn. And then, of course, Neptune in Pisces, but it is retrograde. So as far as the day goes, I think your best bet is to hang with this Virgo sun energy because now it's starting to come in and begin this wide trine with Jupiter. And I feel like Virgo is one of those signs where people are looking at whatever can go wrong. People are looking at whatever can go wrong with Virgo. But I feel like this is one of those Virgo seasons where having some faith would be in order, right? Have some faith that things are going to work out as long as you cover your bases. That's the coda of Virgo, right? Cover your base, tether your camel, and then trust in God. I'll leave you with that for today. Now, I was supposed to whip up today's star of the day, and boy, did I have a difficult time doing that. And, it's one of those things. Is it a sign? I wanted to do Michael Jackson today, but here, why don't we just do Michael Jackson anyway? Michael Jackson's got a couple of birth charts and a couple of different birth times. I don't really like to do charts for people that have various times, but I think we could just kind of go in this direction. And you would think that somebody as well known as Michael Jackson, you would have a very specific birth time, but that is not the case. So let's do this. Let me get in here and we can play with. I mean, the chart is the same. It's just that the birth time is slightly different. So we're going to play with this. And I guess it's better for me this way because I don't have to do the whole background. I was going to do Gigi Allen today, who is about as opposite as Michael Jackson as you can get, even though they're born on the same day. So this chart, which is as far as the lowest rodent charts go, is a double D rating, which means it's not the best. So in this manifestation of Michael's chart, he's a Pisces rising with his Pisces moon. He's born with on a full moon, so he fits the full moon profile for sure. Meaning that he's going to be culminating. Like people who are born in full moon, it's kind of a culmination lifetime, and they get to shine. We've seen that with full moon people in their charts. So clearly, Michael fits the profile, and here, there's very permeable boundaries with the ascendant and how for me, Michael Jackson is really a hard kind of case to wrap my head around and arms around. And one of the reasons I have to confess is it has to do with whether or not we got the real Michael Jackson for most of his career. And I know that sounds really crazy, but there was the fire during the Pepsi commercial that he did right after Thriller, and then the Jacksons were going on their Victory tour, and they did this Pepsi commercial. And apparently, Michael was burned horribly during this commercial, and they delayed the tour. They stopped the tour. Uh, would it have been out of the question to find somebody who was a Michael impersonator? Now, let's just kind of go with this for a minute here. We saw Michael Jackson start off one way with the Jackson 5, little kid, little teddy bear, right? And then he eventually does Off the Wall, which is kind of a bigger version of the little Michael Jackson. Thriller, kind of the, Jerry Curl version of the little Michael Jackson. And then he starts to look different. Am I right? He starts to look different. Now, he theoretically goes through all this plastic surgery and the hyperbaric chamber and the skin whitening, and he becomes like the Howard Hughes of rock and roll, although he will perform live. But the thing that always struck me about Michael Jackson, or at least the mid to latter version of Michael Jackson, was that in public he often wore a mask. Do you remember all those photos of him wearing a mask, like masking his identity? And again, is it somebody who had to have massive plastic surgery because there's a good chance they were disfigured with a fire, or was this another version of Michael Jackson? Now, on my other show, 15 Minutes of Flame, which I will do a little pump for right now, I've talked about this character Dave, and Dave showed up right after Michael Jackson supposedly died. I'm not sure whoever that character was actually really died. That's just my own personal side. It was very weird. I remember watching it, and the rumor that he was walking around um, the parking area, the underground parking area at the Staples Center, like a bunch of high strange, right? But this guy Dave comes out at that time, and he supposedly is this young guy who suffered all these burns, and Michael Jackson took him under his wing, and he's on Larry King, and I swear to God, he looks and sounds surprisingly like Michael Jackson. Okay, so I'm just throwing this out there, right? Again, it's not just that he has these two charts, but it's almost like he's two separate people because he becomes so unlike the Michael Jackson that we knew, right? And there's a lot of really high strange in his life with his father. Let's just play with this chart for a little bit. Well, I'll tell you what we see here is we see, guess what? We see an abundance of fire. We have Mercury retrograde, 25 Leo, Venus in Leo, Uranus in Leo. And they're not too tight. Venus and Uranus are about separated by about 4 degrees, but there's definitely some fire here. And I suppose if we twisted the astrology a bit, right, we could make a case that, with all this fire behind him, that Michael, with the Sun Pluto conjunction, would go through a significant transformation because that's the nature of Sun Pluto in general, right? Now we throw in Mars, which is at 22, and it's squaring Mercury. Mars is of course, in Taurus here, squared Mercury. And remember, when I talk about squares, they cause friction in a chart. It's like we're taking one object and striking it against another. So you're going to get friction. Friction, of course, leads to fire. And who knows what was going on here? Because Michael and his brothers, they all had a terrible relationship with Joe, who turned them out. Right? They were sexually abused. I mean, there was this one story where he took them to a recording. It was a TV studio, I think, the TV or music recording studio, and he basically gave each of them over to people outside of the studio itself, and you know what they would do with them, right? They would sexually abuse them. So I don't know if Joe Jackson needed to do that. I mean, they were just incredibly talented, but it seemed to be a part of the package. The whole family is weird. You know, even the one who's probably the most stable, Janet. I mean, she's even weird, right? So I think there's a chance here that Michael was kind of going to go rogue. You know, looking at the chart, he's got a rogue chart, and breaking out, and seeking his independence. And I think, and I'm not saying that Joe Jackson was responsible for a fire in a Pepsi commercial. But how often have we seen artists and music? We talked about Buddy Holly on Sunday night getting, very concerned about his royalties and really wanting to, have these mechanical rights and publishing be more in the artist's favor. Of course, again, his plane went down. Sometimes when we look at rock and roll, I think things are fairly sometimes they're just supernatural. Sometimes there's foul play, like when Sonny Bono was skiing down the hill and I guess he ran into a tree or something. Sonny Bono was involved in rewriting the copyright laws for music and in favor of the artists. So we've got a kind of a pattern here. Here's Palace, which I talked about earlier, and I'm not saying that Michael Jackson was going to turn on the industry, although whoever's I don't. This is a very hard kind of topic and subject because there's two times with him, and it feels like there's these two iterations of Michael, and so there's this one song in there where he says something along the lines, "Jew me, screw me," right? Whoever Michael Jackson is, he's talking about the record industry, and that's post Thriller. And I do believe that there is a supernatural element to rock and roll. That there are these forces at play that are, for lack of a better term, summoned. So how convenient is that, right? How convenient is that? Sometimes it's human error, but a lot of times there's just things in that world that happen that are just completely unexplainable. As an artist, and we'll just go off of this chart, Michael has incredible potential. He has all these sextiles to Neptune and Jupiter. He's known for his duet, right? That big duet with Paul McCartney, "The Girl Is Mine." That was a big deal and a huge hit. True Note and Libra. So Michael is, I don't know if he's the Prince of Pop, but but he is the Prince of Peace in some ways. Like, this is a very gentle guy. Now that doesn't mean he didn't have a temper, but I think with Mars in Taurus, he is slow to temper. He is slow to anger, but once it blows, I think it could blow. But I think Michael would be very, very soft spoken, but still I think he could be a little on the angry side. And he was cagey. I don't know who was um, guiding him, but he went in and started buying the Beatles catalog, right? That's super cagey. That's like Sun, Pluto, sextile Jupiter. We'll throw Mercury in there. Eighth house, other people's money and publishing. So we have Saturn in this chart. We have Saturn conjunct the midheaven, and of course Saturn's the father, and that's Joe Jackson. Now, Michael was, for by all accounts, he was a hardworking guy, right? He's going to get to the top. So in some ways, this chart actually works. It actually fits, and we see Michael through the ascendant as being very feminine. He's very, very feminine. He had a lot of feminine energy in this chart. I think the in conjunct with Mars Saturn, you're going to get it in this other chart too, which I'll show you in a second. But I feel like that this is the violence that's connected to the father, right? Mars and Taurus. We're getting into sort of root chakra stuff, second chakra stuff, that area, and this in conjunct with Saturn. Also, wanting to express things in a way that sometimes he doesn't always have a language for. He has a language for commercial hits, but really trying to express what he's feeling. And when he does do it, the results are really stunning. Like even a song like Ben from the hit movie Willard, where Michael Jackson sings the title song about a rat, which is so totally Michael Jackson. That song has an incredible amount of emotion. He's singing about a rat, but you can feel it, right? So when Michael goes into feeling mode with that moon on the ascendant, I mean, he's really channeling emotion and I think in a lot of a very pure kind of way. That moon gives voice to some of the restraint here that we see with Mercury in Leo retrograde. Anyway, that's one version of his chart. The other version of his chart, let me get out of here and do this one so I can find it here. The other version of his chart has him as a Scorpio rising and puts his sun at the top of the chart, which if you were trying to have a chart that you could rectify without a lot of time signatures or events, you'd probably go for a noon chart. And I mean, I guess again we could kind of make a case for this as well. Saturn being the father in the second house and working from a very young age, and all that energy being channeled up to the top of the chart right here. And then, of course, Mars in the seventh house, and this is exactly what we're talking about with the father and a violent relationship with the father. Scorpio rising. Yeah, I guess you can make a case for that too, especially if Michael Jackson either dies or goes through a drastic transformation of his persona, right? And then the moon here in the fourth house would be very, very monk-like, very, very hermetic. The moon here is in a retreat mode, and it begins to take shape with Never Never Land, right? So these are two very interesting charts. And if you'd like to leave a comment in the comment section and give me your thoughts as to which of these charts feels more like Michael Jackson, let me know. You can make a case for both. You could clearly make a case for both. I actually might lean a little into this chart. I might lean a little into this chart, and you would still get some of the intensity and the effect of the transfer. And even with Scorpio rising, I think Michael could channel some of that energy through the ascendant. I don't know. What do you think? There's a case to be made really for Pisces rising and the purity of the kind of Piscean full moon, and he can become anybody. Right? There's a lot of projection onto him, and even that period where he was accused of being a pedophile and all that stuff that happened, and never that's also very Pisces rising, right? Like all of a sudden, Michael is guilty of these heinous crimes. No matter whatever birth time you assign to him, Michael Jackson is definitely our star of the day. Well, thanks for being here. And please join me over on 15 Minutes of Flame. That's 15 Minutes of Flame. And that happens at about 9/11 over on the other channel. And we're going to get back into some Lahaina and some Maui stuff, of course, because it's still in the news cycle. And there's plenty to talk about. By the way, behind me, we have sunrise over Mount Hood, Oregon. Looking pretty good there, isn't it? If you like to have some of the best CBD on the internet, please go to truehempscience.com. That's truehempscience.com. You spend $100 or more and type in 15MINS and you will get free product. And Chris has formulated all these different tonics and elixirs, and they're all based on different emulsifications and all kinds of stuff. And this CBD is organic. It's great stuff. And so I highly recommend both his product and his service. $150 or more gets free shipping. And then, of course, you have a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's truehempscience.com, 15MINS, when you check out to get the goodies. All right. That's it. Thanks, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back here tomorrow as close to 8 o'clock sharp as we can for another edition of the Astro Weather. And wherever you are in this realm, may you walk gently. May peace be with you, and God bless. Bye for now.